Welcome back to Tom's Datsun Garage. Today's video is going to be about my first 240Z, my 1973 Datsun 240Z. This car was originally orange in color, and at some point in the late 70s, I believe, the car was repainted in the maroon gold two-tone motif that you see here. It had slotted mags, and I believe they were made by a company called Appliance. I'm not exactly sure. Or maybe they were Western. I think they were Westerns. They used to have chrome center caps in them that said Western. Those center caps would wind up going missing one at a time for various reasons over the years. I had this car for approximately 4.5 years or so, from around late 99, early 2000 to around 2005, maybe late 2004, and then I sold it. I had so much fun in this car, so many great memories, such good times. For one, I'd been pining for a 240Z for quite some time because it was the car I aspired to own. My dream car was a 240Z. And I can't remember exactly how I came to find out about this car. I was for sale at a place in, it's a college town in northern Florida. But it was for sale at a place called Aaron's Z-Car Specialists. And the asking price was $1,000, and I paid $900 for it. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, this car was rotten. I mean, rusted like no tomorrow. It had rust in the floors, firewall, fender, like you just name it. It was rusting. And the car only got worse over time. But it didn't stop me from driving it. I've taken this car as far south as Miami and West Palm Beach, so I've driven it an hour and a half, 2 hours away, without a problem. I would drive this car everywhere. In fact, it was my daily driver while my 1983 Datsun 200SX was in a body shop at the high school where my brother was, doing the body work on it. At this point, a massive shout out to my parents for being very patient. I was still living at home with them, and I had just started my career. And at this point, I had my 1982 Sentra, my 1983 200SX, and now my 1973 240Z all at the house. My parents had one car apiece, and I had 3 cars to myself. But they were patient, and they didn't say anything about it, really. I guess they realized that I was going to be moving out soon or something, but bless them. Anyway, so this car was very special to me. When I found it, it had very bad tint on the windows. You could hardly see out of them. It had the slats down the back window, that window shade that they always put on them. It had a radio just kind of tossed into place, like an old tape deck from the 70s or early 80s. It had shag carpeting in there, and the car stunk like mildew and mold, probably because of all the water leaks from all the rust holes. But I didn't let that faze me. I ripped out all the carpeting, took the slats off the windows, scraped the tin off the windows, took the radio and put a different one in there. And I got the blower fan working, and man, all the lights on it worked. It ran and drove great. Even when this car was broken, it didn't strand me. I had a clutch release bearing fail. The throwout bearing seized, and it wore a hole right through the pressure plate, and it blew out the slave cylinder while I was in traffic, sitting at a stoplight. So I just started it up in gear the rest of the day and still ran all my errands. I shifted it without the clutch, no problem. Got home and pulled the transmission out, fixed the clutch and all that, and was going just fine the next day. I've also sheared a roll pin in this transmission one time when I was shifting from first to second, I believe, real hard. And I wind up driving it to my friend's house in 3 gears, and then right down the street I only had reverse, so I drove it to his house the rest of the way in reverse. So once again, I was able to get to where I was going. It's never stranded me. This car had been retrofitted with the SUs from an earlier 240Z, so this car didn't suffer from the problems that the regular 73s did. It also had a Momo steering wheel in it. I did take the steering wheel cover off and just drove around with just the steering wheel itself. By this picture here, the carpet had been taken out of the car and all that stuff, so it stopped smelling like mildew. And here's my really, really good friend Kenny. He's actually got his own set of shops out in Colorado now at Fine Tune Auto. If you need your car worked on and you're in Colorado, man, look him up. His shops are great. He has 4 of them. But here we are checking out the house that I would soon call my own at night. We rode up there one night and I was showing him the house that we were looking at. I've got a lot of stories and history with this car in the relatively short amount of time that I've owned it. One of them being that you see the wipers are missing in this photo. I actually wound up fixing the wiper motor with a spring out of a Bic lighter. I fixed it because I was going to Miami and it was going to be rainy and I needed the wipers to work, so I found out that the spring had rusted away and the brush wasn't being pushed up against the commutator, and that's when I went up fixed that. But you notice the front bumper's missing too. It was so rusted that it rusted into 2 different pieces, and I pulled up to my friend's house one night and I just grabbed it and bent it up and down until the pieces broke off and I threw the pieces in the trash. It was around this time that I found another 240Z. That is going to be my first 71 240Z. And I'll talk about that one on the next video. But this car I drove it all over, and it was such a reliable car. I had no problem lending it to people. I've had friends need to borrow a car. My wife needed to borrow it in an emergency once when her the engine computer went in her SER Spec V. She needed to get this report turned in for a college class that she was in. So I told her, grab the keys, take the 240. You may not like the car, but it won't let you down. And sure enough, no problems. She got to school and delivered that report, and all was well with the world. Of course, this car started to really fall apart. I mean, I had hit a road gator, which is a tire tread from a tractor trailer in the middle of the street, and it shattered the passenger floorboard. It was all made of fiberglass. Shattered it clean out of the car. I had a piece of wood laying down for the floor for the longest time. Even lost my garage door opener remote through that friggin' hole. It slid off my console down through that hole one time. But once I got my 71 240Z that I have now, the 73 fell by the wayside and my other 71 went out back behind the house. And I have saved the best story for last. You're probably wondering why you're seeing a riding lawnmower in the picture with my 82 Sentra. Well, I had that mower for about 1.5 years before the engine seized on it. And I wind up giving that mower to my really good friend Kenny, the one who you saw earlier in this video, checking out this house that I live in now with me. And I needed to get this over to his house. He was actually going to get a new motor and put it on there and use this for his own yard. So I didn't have a pickup truck, and if you're putting 2 and 2 together already, you probably already know where this is headed. That's right, I stuck this riding lawnmower in the back of that red, maroon, and gold 1973 Datsun 240Z. Now I know that sounds crazy, and I would not expect anyone to believe me. However, I had the wherewithal to grab a camera and take a picture of it, actually 2 pictures, because I knew nobody would believe me. And I know the pictures aren't the greatest, but in the second photo you can really see that I do truly have a riding lawnmower sticking out of the back of a 1973 Datsun 240Z. I've also had a dryer in the back of this car. I used it like a truck. I even had the engine out of a Toyota MR2 in it one time. No problems. Towards the end, this car wasn't getting driven very often, and the bottoms of the fenders had rusted off to the point where when I hit about 35, 40 miles an hour, they would actually bow out from the body and have like a wide body kit look into it. All the center caps had gone missing, the bumpers rusted off the front of it, but it still ran and drove amazing. Never ever left me stranded, or anyone else that I had lent it to. It was such a wonderful car, but the body was just way too far gone. So these pictures are the last ones I took of the car, and you can see that the rear bumper had gotten some damage. I can't remember how I did that, but I wind up selling my other 71 240Z and this 73 240Z as a package deal to the same fella in northern Florida, oddly enough. He came down here and looked at me like I was crazy when I told him this car would make it up to this house no problem. He lived like 4.5 hours away. I said, look, man, if you break down at any point in between your house and here, I'll come get you. And he called me about 4.5 hours later and said, man, I can't believe it. That car runs amazing. And I said, I told you. I wasn't kidding. I actually told him I would get in it right now and drive it to Alaska, and I wouldn't think twice on it. That car was just so fantastic. And it really set the bar high for my expectations on my next 240Z. But that's the conclusion of this video. Thank you guys for watching so much. If you got any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thank you as always very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.